I'd like to take a moment and you mentioned something about human business before, and I'd like to take a moment and tell you about someone named Jenna. Jenna grew up in what you might call a normal household. She had lots of friends, she was successful in school, by all accounts, she had the world in front of her. That changed when she was prescribed prescription pain medication, and it started her on a 6-year struggle of addiction. She wanted so badly to get better. And for a while, she was on a better path. In one conversation, she said to her mother, "When I get out of treatment, me and you, we're gonna go out, we're gonna help people." That was her promise. She's tried so hard to realize that dream, but she lost her struggle with addiction. My little sister was 26 years old when she died. Our family picked themselves up, joined with the community, and we worked to create a new model that challenges the stale, failing national model for substance use. And we are a pilot for the state of Vermont right now as well. But things are still bleak. We put up a memorial wall in one of our buildings, and it started with just a picture of Jenna. And over time, other people in the community in this small town of Vermont began to put up pictures as well. That wall should not have filled up so quickly. And it continues to do so. There's so many of them now. We envisioned this memorial as a wall with a few photos on it, but the tragedy of it is there's so many of them that we have to stack them up tightly, and they themselves have become a wall, brick by brick and frame by frame, this wall of loss, and yet we continue to see the deaths rise, and we build that wall a bit more, and collectively as a society, we go on with our day. We have an epidemic that has killed so many people that it has single-handedly brought down our country's life expectancy, and it's an asterisk in our national conversation. I'm grateful for your plan. I'm grateful that you're talking about this. You and Doug and Catherine Bergen were the only ones that are talking about this. But the front of this war is everywhere, and every time we speak out about it, every time we endeavor to help stem the flow, we are moving the line forward, and we can't solve the crisis until we're talking about it more. So you do that, and I'm grateful. That's why I drive 3 hours, and I've done it 3 times to see you so far this campaign. But my question to you is, how do we move this issue to the forefront so we're having a national conversation about it, just like we are about Ukraine and the border and climate change? What will you do to make this a prime issue of your professional career? Thank you.
Well, first, thank you for coming again. This has been, as you probably know, a passion of mine since I was 30 years old. When I was 30 years old, I got recruited to join the board of a substance abuse center sponsored by the Catholic Church in New Jersey called Daytop Village, which was particularly for young people, for people 18 and younger who had substance abuse disorder. And so 30 years ago, I was 30 years old 31 years ago. So it was a long time ago. And what I learned from being there that I didn't understand before was that this is a disease. It is not a moral failing. And for most people, after the first time they take a drug, it's not a choice. And first thing that a president needs to do is to make that clear to the American people, that this is like heart disease, cancer, diabetes. It is a disease that kills people that has some contribution from conduct choices, as do heart disease and cancer and diabetes too, but is a disease that is very, very hard to treat, and that people shouldn't be stigmatized. Families shouldn't be stigmatized because a member of their family has this disease any more than someone who has any of those diseases we talked about. And the reason I think a president can change that national conversation is because we've seen members of the first family do that at times. You go back to Betty Ford, and she changed the national conversation on 2 issues in the 2.5 years that her husband was president. She was open and public about her breast cancer, the mastectomy she had, the treatment she had to have, and it gave women license to talk about it. And it changed the entire way we've approached treating breast cancer since then. And all the advances that have been made, I think, draw a line directly back to Betty Ford. And she did the same thing on alcoholism. And to admit, as the First Lady of the United States, that you're an alcoholic, and then to go and spend the rest of her life opening her own treatment center, talking about those issues. She used the platform she had to do that. I've spoken many times about later in my life, the dear friend of mine, my law school classmate, who fell victim to the same thing that your sister did. He started on prescription painkiller because he hurt his back. And he's in the middle of a trial and he couldn't stop. So he went and got Percocet. And he got completely addicted and went on a 10-year odyssey of in and out of treatment centers. He was married to a physician, 3 beautiful daughters, partner in a major law firm. Every way you would define success, people would look at him and say he was successful. And his life ended in a motel room by himself with an empty bottle of Percocet and an empty quart of vodka at 50 years old. And left 3 daughters and a wife. And I went to his funeral as the governor, my law school classmate, who I knew was a good man, who had fallen victim to this. We lost 110,000 people, as you know, last year in this country to overdose. It's the leading killer among 18 to 34-year-old men. This is an epidemic. It's the only job I ever accepted from Trump. He asked me to chair his National Commission on Opioids and Drug Abuse, and I did. And what I would do is what he didn't do. I would take that report, which I put together with Governor Baker from Massachusetts and Governor Cooper from North Carolina and Patrick Kennedy, who's in recovery himself, and we'll implement those programs. We need to understand that this is not a problem we're going to arrest our way out of. Addicts who we arrest just go to jail as addicts and come out as addicts. The people who belong in jail are the people who profit from this. And I would continue to prosecute those people in jail. One of the things that I think we need to do on the federal level that I did in New Jersey was when we did criminal justice reform, we lowered our prison population pretty significantly, enough that we could close 2 state prisons. So I closed one of them, but the other one I converted into a drug treatment prison. Because so many of the people who go into jail are addicted. And we have this fiction that they don't get drugs in jail. Of course they do. They can get anything they want in jail. It's the way it works. And so what we did was, for folks who had a demonstrated addiction problem to drugs or alcohol, in the last year of their sentence, they got transferred to the drug treatment prison. And they started to get treatment then. And if it was an opioid situation, they would start to get medication-assisted treatment. By the end of their year there, we would qualify for them for Medicaid if they qualified before they left, give them their Medicaid card, and give them their prescriptions for their first 3 months of medication-assisted treatment, so that when they left, they could continue their treatment without all the bumps that happen for someone who comes out of prison. That program has reduced recidivism by those folks by 40%. Every one of those lives is a gift from God that deserves to be saved. And so the way I would approach this is to talk about it just the way I spoke about it now, and to do it regularly as president, and to go and visit treatment centers as president, and let people know that if a president can come and stand here, you should have one of these in your neighborhood. If a president's willing to say it's a disease, not a moral failing, then maybe people will listen. And what we need to understand is that this one kills indiscriminately. It doesn't matter what your race is, your ethnicity, your socioeconomic status, your educational background. It kills everyone. And that's why I think we actually have a chance to do it, because it's not isolated in one particular population. It's everywhere. And so I've spent the last 31 years of my life working on this, with some success and some personal failure. That friend of mine, when he was in one of his places of sobriety, he had lost his job at the law firm. And so I hired him in state government and said, okay, we're gonna get you back on the road here. start this job, get your resume re-going, and then stay here for as long as you like until you're ready to go and get another job that you want. So I hired him, and about 7 months later, his boss asked for a meeting with me. He came to see me and he said, look, I found your friend asleep at his desk. And when I opened the drawer, he had an empty half-gallon of vodka in his bottom left-hand drawer. What do you want me to do? And I said, fire him. Nothing more I can do for him, fire him. So he went back and fired him. And my friend called me and said, I can't believe you had me fired. And I said to him, we have to deal with this. And so, you know, when I got the call on that Sunday morning that he was dead, I certainly also felt a decent amount of guilt about it too. Because you wonder to yourself, how did I fail him? What more could I have done? Families are suffering through that every day in this country, every day. And we need to try to alleviate that suffering. And the way to do it is to make them feel like they're not alone. And they don't have to hide the problem any more than they would hide cancer or diabetes or heart disease. So, you know, I say this all the time. My mother was an addict. She was addicted to nicotine. She started smoking when she was 16 years old, which was 1948. When not only didn't they say smoking was bad for you, they said it was good for you, gave you energy, made you more active and athletic, right? I mean, all the BS they were selling back then. My mother got addicted and she tried everything to quit. But she smoked over a pack a day, every day for 55 years. And at 71 years old, when she inevitably got lung cancer, that had spread to her brain, her liver, and her kidney, we lost her inside 4 months from the diagnosis. And no one said to me she's getting what she deserves. She knew smoking was bad for her. She's getting what she deserved. No one said that to me. But would I have told anybody about my mother if she was a heroin addict? And would they have come and helped her? Would they have consoled her? I don't think so. And it's because we make a differentiation between those two, and we've got to stop doing that. So I can't express to you enough how badly I feel about your loss and your family's loss. But the only way that I can express it is by doing something about it. And you can count on the fact that if I'm president, I will.